What a fight night. Colby Covington just got shown the new era. And that's what we as fans saw last night. Joaquin Buckley TKOs Colby Covington via doctor stoppage. One of the worst cuts we've ever seen. Not necessarily like a big gash or anything like that, but Colby Covington was painting the octagon last night because of how much blood was dripping from his cut above his eye. Doctor stepped in, said that was it, but we got to talk about this fight night. I'm going to recap it. Unbelievable card. Even the fights that were boring ended up being amazing at the end with like brutal KOs. But we got to talk about Colby Covington and Joaquin Buckley. Buckley made Colby Covington look like an old Damian Maia. Remember Colby Covington fought Damian Maia back in the day, and he was the surging contender, and Damian Maia was the old guy, kind of stiff. Not got the best wrestling, but he's just going to shoot and shoot and shoot, and he's pretty tough. That's basically what Colby Covington got turned into last night, was the slow, unathletic guy who's not got a whole lot going on for him on the feet, but he's just going to shoot, shoot, and shoot. And I thought Buckley was going to win this fight. I said Buckley was going to win this fight when they first announced it. And a big part of that was because of the cardio. A lot of people that picked Colby Covington probably just hadn't watched Buckley's career very closely because one of his strong suits is actually his cardio. Even though he looks like someone that's going to gas out, he usually gets better as fights go on. And Buckley has amazing wrestling, great wrestling defense. And this is what I noticed while watching this fight. I think Joaquin Buckley would have always beat Colby Covington. I understand this is a declined Colby. I understand that this is a guy that's been inactive and he's taken this on short notice and he's not necessarily been as hungry as he used to be. I mean, we saw that in the Leon Edwards fight. The Colby that showed up to fight Leon was not the same guy that fought Kamaru Usman back in 2019 when they had that war or the rematch. Different version of Colby. And he thought he could go in there and turn it around and bring back the old days where, Colby Covington's back, chaos is back, I'm going to prove my level. And we saw a new evolution, a new style of fighter, and that's Joaquin Buckley. And it's not necessarily his technique, it's just how well-rounded this guy is. Buckley is not only athletic, but he has amazing cardio, he hits hard, he can throw with volume, and he has great wrestling defense. RDA wasn't stuffing takedowns like Joaquin Buckley. RDA didn't have that ability to sprawl, right? Damian Maia was stiff as a board. You got to think about the old welterweights. I mean, I can't believe I'm saying Colby Covington's an old welterweight, but even the guys 2017 to 2022, most of them are getting destroyed by Joaquin Buckley. This is a new evolution of fighter, and that's what this represented to me. It wasn't just Colby Covington getting old. It wasn't like he looked as bad as Stipe looked when Stipe fought John Jones. I think what this was that this was inevitable. This was always going to happen when Colby Covington fought someone that had no respect for his striking, and that's what Joaquin Buckley showed. No respect for Colby's pillow hands, because a lot of guys, they get in there. Kamaru Usman back in the day, and Usman, similar to Buckley, well-rounded, has power. But even when Usman fought Colby the first time, he wasn't someone that had like 5 or 6 KOs in his career up until that point. Usman didn't really start knocking people out until later on in his career. But my point is, I think that this was just, we are finally seeing fighters that are super well-rounded and can do everything and are fast as well. We used to talk about how wait till Colby fights Gilbert Burns, because that's a guy that's not going to have to deal with his pillow hand. That's someone that's not going to have any respect for his pillow hands, and it's also someone that's not just going to be hopeless on the ground. And you look at Buckley, and it's like, well, he's not a Gilbert Burns when it comes to his jiu-jitsu, but he can't be held down, right? That was pretty surprising to me. Colby got Buckley down in his most dominant positions, right? He had him inside control. He had him in mount. Joaquin Buckley just got up, right? And he, again, the sprawling of the takedowns. RDA, stiff RDA. RDA used to be the well-rounded guy, right? RDA used to be the well-rounded guy. RDA wasn't doing this. RDA wasn't this fast. He wasn't this dangerous. And this is the thing. I think that even though Colby's a little bit older, a little bit slower, and that's evident, I think that Colby's style was always for the, always going to only dominate the one-dimensional strikers. And it was going to give issues to the wrestlers. But when it comes to the Usman was always pretty dangerous, but he wasn't super athletic. You know what I mean? Usman was like a great wrestler, but Buckley's just like faster. You know what I mean? He's faster. He's throwing like spinning wheel kicks and shit like that. He's got more dexterity. This was always gonna happen when Colby ran into someone that was like fast, dangerous. I guess you could say, well, what it took was Colby to run into the most well-rounded fighter possible, but you kind of get what I'm saying. I think Colby finally met the guy that's not got to worry about his striking, has no respect for his striking, and is just going to go out there and fucking try to bulldoze him that can also stuff takedowns easily. So that's what happened. That's why I said Colby Covington looked like Damian Maia, because when Kamaru Usman fought Damian Maia, when Colby Covington fought Damian Maia was the stiff old guy that's just going to shoot, right? That you don't really have to worry about on the feet, but still got a, tough noggin. I mean, I guess this is the end of Colby Covington's career unless he wants to come back and fight a Wonderboy Thompson, but this is the thing that I'll say. I don't know if moving forward, Colby Covington is a good stepping stone for surging contenders, because I don't think that beating Colby Covington at this point is that impressive. You know what I mean? Like, yes, it's a good win for Joaquin Buckley, but Nursultan Ruziboyev was a tougher fight. Okay? And not only that, Wonderboy Thompson was a tougher fight. I know styles make fights, but at this point, the surging contenders, I think the old crafty vets are going to have to be Leon. I think they're going to have to... Leon is not the old crafty vet. But Usman, Joaquin called out Usman. I thought that was a pretty good call out. I think that, he did the whole, whoever you guys make the most noise for is going to be the one that I fight next. And he mentioned, who did he mention first? He mentioned Leon first. No one wanted that. That's tough for Leon. It just shows that he's not that relevant. But then he mentioned Kamaru Usman, and Usman was in the building. That got a lot of cheers. Then he said, or I'll take the belt off of whoever has it next. He should have just said Shavkat Rakhmonov. If you say Bilal, that's not going to get the biggest crowd reaction. You got to say Shavkat, because that's the boogeyman, right? I think that would have gotten the loudest pop. Listen, Joaquin Buckley went from being someone that I didn't even think could be ranked. I remember maybe right after his KO over Kasangane, right after that crazy KO, Buckley got head kick KO'd by DeChirico. And the fight after that, he didn't look that great. And I said, Buckley is one of these guys where, Buck's got a fun style, but he'll never be ranked. Like, I just don't think he's that good. He's got the Mike Tyson head. Buckley used to be like the Mike Tyson head movement guy who's got awkward boxing. He moves like Mike, but he can't punch like Mike. And he can't throw combos like Mike. Now, though, this guy is rapidly improved. 6-fight win streak. Who has he got on the win streak? Colby Covington. He's got Vicente Luque. He's got Nursultan Ruziboyev. He's got Alex Morano. All right, he's got Wonderboy Thompson. Listen, Buckley is, in my opinion, a top 3 best fighter in this division. I can't believe it. He is the most improved fighter in the UFC this year by far. And I think he's right up there with Ian Gary and Shavkat Rakhmonov because of how well-rounded he is. It's very rare that you have a guy that is capable of throwing output with power, with great cardio, who can also wrestle and who can't get held down. Such a complete fighter. He was always going to go out there and beat Colby Covington, who, again, it just kind of represents the past. Tough for Colby Covington, though, because, again, he had Chael Sonnen. He was with Hulk Hogan on the walkout. He had a new walkout song. I thought his walkout was epic. I thought his walkout was cool. Honestly, I kind of was like, man, I kind of want this guy to win now when he was walking out, right? Yeah, man, it's a tough one for him. I mean, Colby looked like he actually wanted it this time. But again, his body's not holding up, especially taking this on short notice. He's been playing poker, and I don't know if Colby's still training as hard as he used to. I'm sure he stays in shape, but I don't know if he's still training to be a champion. Whereas, Joaquin Buckley is in the gym every single day with hopes to be a champion, and it really showed. And also, just better. Again, I think that this version of Joaquin Buckley would beat prime Colby Covington, who's got no power, whose wrestling was good, but maybe only 10% better. Let's get on to the next one. Cub Swanson, 41 years old. Billy Quarantillo, kind of a similar problem to Colby, just no power. That's always been Billy Quarantillo's issue. Just crazy cardio, toughness, grit, doesn't know how to take a back step, is always moving forward, hopes to overwhelm you, but just has no power in his hands. And Cub Swanson, there was a couple moments where Cub Swanson looked like he was in trouble because of the flurries of Billy Quarantillo. You know, if you don't have any power, they call it a flurry, right? That's basically what you call it, a flurry. But listen, Cub Swanson, that hook into the right hand, nasty KO. I think that Cub Swanson, you know, I'm kind of surprised that he didn't get a loud cheer from the fans. I know Quarantillo was fighting out of Tampa, but he's really from Buffalo. But Cub Swanson, you know, he's a West Coast guy. Maybe they didn't want to cheer the West Coast guy, but like, I don't know. I feel like this guy's achieved UFC ultimate crafty vet, unk status, legend status. So at this point, you know, Cub Swanson, he's only going to have a few more bouts. I think that, you know, the fans got to start treating this guy like he's a legend, because we didn't really see that when Bruce Buffer was announcing his name. But Cub Swanson has finally achieved the Jim Miller UFC 300 type of status. So shout out to Cub. Great KO. Manel Kape, arguably having the best performance of his entire career. He looked like he had a chip on his shoulder this time. Manel Kape looked like he had a chip on his shoulder. This was a perfect flyweight showcase. You could tell that the fans were engaged the entire time while watching this. When Manel Kape, especially the second round, after he had gotten nut-shotted like 3 times, by the way, Bruno Silva got a point taken away on the third time. That was a lot, but Manel Kape was literally out there emoting on him. This guy had like an Anderson Silva emoting type of performance where he just made Bruno Silva look silly. TKO'd him. A little bit controversial because he hurt Bruno Silva with a teep to the midsection, but it looked like it may have landed on the cup. It's a weird one because it's one of those where even if it does land on the cup, the ref's looking at him and was like, yeah, well, you nut-shotted this guy 3 times, so I'm going to let it slide. Maybe it was one of those, but you know what? It could have also just been to the midsection. That was what initially hurt Bruno Silva, and then Manel Kape teed off on him. And just a perfect performance for Manel Kape. He gets on the mic and he says, "Fuck out of France. Fuck out of Sanya." Perfect speech. Because a lot of people remember his speech in Australia where he was going at Kai Kara France. Yeah, and he did the mic drop at the end. He's calling for the bell. He went over to Dana White, and Dana looked like he was getting a little bit annoyed because Kape was not allowing Dana White to not look him dead in the eye and promise him a title shot. But I think you give this guy a fucking title shot. I know he's messed up. I know he's missed weight. I understand it. But come on, man. We're at that point where we're thinking about bringing Davidson Figueiredo down, right? We're thinking about ruining Figgy's career, putting him on another weight cut. We're thinking about bringing Muhammad Mokaev back because there's no one else. Give Manel Kape a rematch with Pantoja. That's what I want to see. And again, this is one of the best performances ever. This was like peak entertainment for flyweight. The only thing that was missing were some knockdowns, but the emotes perfect. The crowd was loving it. And you know, when it comes to the flyweights, they're not usually the most popular fighters, so it's good to see them have like these kinds of performances where, you know, they have like I'm him performance. You know what I mean? So good for Manel Kape. The villain of the flyweight division is back, and the UFC needs to give this guy a title shot. I don't care if it's just Bruno Silva. We need to see it. And if he becomes champ, that's going to be the most legendary flyweight champ. So, you know, amazing performance. Next up, Vitor Petrino, Dustin Jacoby. This was interesting. I was shocked. I mean, Vitor Petrino doesn't look like a guy that's going to get KO'd the way he gets KO'd, right? I mean, he got brutally knocked out with a Kamaru Usman style of right hand. You know, one of those blitzkrieg right hands. Spun Vitor Petrino around, knocked him out cold. There was a lot of crazy KOs on this card. I gave the first 2 rounds to Petrino. I think that Dustin Jacoby looked very worried early on. Like, it looked like he was fighting not to get knocked out in the first 2 rounds, especially in the first round. I expected Jacoby to win this fight. I expected him to piece Vitor Petrino up pretty easily because of, you know, Jacoby's done that to guys like Roundtree, who I think is better than Vitor Petrino. But Jacoby was on the back foot, hardly throwing any strikes, really looked skittish. And it seemed like Vitor was just going to win a decision. And then 3rd round, Jacoby said it in his post-fight interview. He said he was trying to be patient. spins Vitor Petrino's head back with a perfectly timed right hand, knocks him out brutally. Probably those first 2 rounds of like lulling Vitor into thinking that this Jacoby guy's not dangerous. He doesn't want to bang. He doesn't want to slug. That probably helped as well. But yeah, tough for Vitor Petrino. But you know what? He's fast. He has potential, but he obviously needs to work on his boxing because he was wide open for that counter. And a crafty vet like Justin Jacoby, former Glory kickboxer, he's been in the ring with Alex Pereira. He's going to be the guy to make you pay. Couple of KOs this year from Jacoby over Kennedy Nizichukwu, over Vitor Petrino. So Jacoby's got some pop, man. Jacoby's got some pop. Maybe I was going to say him versus Reyes. I don't know who you give him next. But, yeah, honestly, maybe him versus that new city kickboxing guy. Adrian Yanez, Daniel Marcos. Man, this was a weird one. This was a good fight. This was a really good fight. Yanez, I feel like Yanez was chasing the KO a little bit too much in this fight. Yanez was chasing the KO. The announcers were talking about it too. They were saying that Yanez should just pop the jab and leg kick. Pop the jab and leg kick. If you guys don't remember, one of his best performances was against, I forget his name, Randy Costa. And Yanez was getting pieced up a little bit early in that fight, but he stuck behind his jab, and he was kicking a lot in that fight, and eventually he was able to overwhelm this guy. But in this fight, it looked like Yanez was similar to the Yanez that fought Rob Font, just out here slugging, looking for a big KO. And Daniel Marcos is bigger than him. He's very durable. He's fast. He's explosive. He probably hits even harder. Yanez has some pop, but Marcos has more natural, like, one-shot power. And it seemed like Marcos was making Yanez pay. It seemed like Marcos was the one that was landing the bigger shots. And Yanez was landing good combinations at times, but he was getting wild, getting out of control every now and then. I honestly thought that Yanez did enough to win this fight, right? I thought that he did enough. I think that he had more volume on his side. But they gave it to Daniel Marcos, which was interesting. I don't know. I thought it was a very close fight. Daniel Marcos remains undefeated. Kind of sounds like Figueiredo a little bit. Kind of reminds me of Figueiredo a bit. I called out Aldo. Listen, let's not see that. Aldo had to do the Batista fight. He had to do the Martinez fight. Like, enough giving Aldo the surging contenders with no name. All right? I know Daniel Marcos wants to make a name off of somebody, but at this point, we've given too many contenders the opportunity to do that to Aldo this late in his career. Aldo should be fighting Sanhagens, those kinds of fighters. Aldo should be fighting Figueiredos, all right? Not Daniel Marcos. But yeah, I think Yanez was just a little bit too wild. I don't know if he's improved that much. I think he's looking for a KO. It seemed like he had a chip on his shoulder, that he's still pissed off about those losses, and he was like trying to get it back one big punch, right? But I want to see Yanez, just pop the jab a little bit more, have a clean performance, and then every once in a while you throw the combinations looking for the KO. But yeah, Daniel Marcos gets it done. Let me know what you guys think about this one, because I honestly thought that Yanez still did enough. It says Marcos outlanded him. That's pretty interesting. That is interesting. Didn't seem like it, but yeah, Navajo Sterling versus Tuco Tokos. Man, Tuco Tokos, this, what this reminded me of? This reminded me of Michel Pereira's debut against that guy that I don't remember his name, but like some small fry, sort of skinny fat guy, where Michel Pereira just like totally blew him out of the water and mogged him in the first round, and then this guy ends up coming back to beat Michel Pereira just because he outlasts him. Tuco Tokos was just doing the outlasting. He was doing the survival thing. He was being a survivor in this fight. Because, man, early on it looked like Navajo Sterling was a UFC fighter fighting a amateur MMA fighter. That's what it looked like. Second round, seemed like Tuco Tokos was the crafty vet. And Navajo Sterling was the overzealous, beginner. Third round, we kind of got back to where we were in the first. Okay, Navajo Sterling beating up Tuco Tokos. Navajo Sterling, he seemed disappointed with his performance. This is the debut. He's only got 5 fights. That's actually understandable, though, because, I understand it. I mean, he didn't look that great, but he's only got 5 fights, so it makes sense, right? It makes sense. But this is the new city kickboxer, 27 years old, 5 fights, big guy for the division. He honestly looks like a bodybuilder out there. I expected him to knock out Tuco Tokos first round, but the shot selection's not there. You could tell he was struggling to put Tuco Tokos away. Tuco Tokos was out. He was totally out of it on his feet. And Navajo Sterling, it's just, what do I land? What do I throw? A guy like me, I'm in that situation. Okay, we're going to the body, up top, leg kick right here. You see Dricus du Plessis fight Robert Whittaker. He rocks Robert Whittaker with a jab. Leg kick, right? Stumbles Whittaker, body shot, big body shot. He's going to have to sort of understand with training, which is why I think I might go out there to New Zealand, sort of help the guys out. But, listen, this was a good performance from Navajo Sterling in his debut. He might be beating himself up, but you know what? 5 fights, you're not gonna look like a world beater. You're not gonna look like a world beater. I don't know what Navajo Sterling's gonna look like in 5 years. He might be really good, and he's a light heavyweight, so. Olberg, we still look at Olberg as one of the younger surging contenders. Olberg's in his mid-30s, basically. So, Navajo Sterling's got a lot of time. Man, Michael Johnson, kill or be killed type of fighter, gets the kill shot in the second round. Nasty counter hook. Him and Otman Azaitar slugging, going absolutely berserk. Michael Johnson lands one of his 100-mile-per-hour fastball hooks, closed eyes hooks, and knocks out Otman Azaitar brutally. Follow-up shots, nasty follow-up shots. Johnson's back in the win column, man. I mean, this is his second KO in a row, though, right? I believe this is his second KO in a row. Or maybe he's coming off of a decision. I know, listen, Michael Johnson's been KO'd many times, but classic Michael Johnson KO. This is another reason why this card is so good, because you're going from Joel Alvarez to Klose, and you're like, Michael Johnson, not Mrs. Aitar. This has potential to be a banger, but it could just be an old decision, and we get a nasty KO. So Habib's resume aging well. Let's get on to the next one. You see, this one kind of annoyed me, though. The matchmaking, that is. Joel Alvarez, Klose. You see Joel Alvarez go out there and he beats Elvis Brenner, right? He beats Elvis Brenner, who is talked about as being one of the best contenders, one of the best prospects in MMA, and you're giving him Klose. I know Klose has a good record, but come on, man. Like, Klose, this is the decision guy. This is like the Max Griffin of lightweight. Not really, because he actually has finished people and he's more entertaining, but you couldn't have given Joel Alvarez a more irrelevant name to really boost his stock that much, because it's like Joel Alvarez, that's what you're saying after he KOs him and beats Klose. It's like, this is not, if this was 2019, that would mean something. This is 2018, Beneil Dariush KOs Klose. The whole world's going bonkers. But 2024, come on, man. The UFC should have put a better opponent in front of him, because of course he's going to look like a world beater. But you know what? He did exactly what he needed to do to Klose. We saw how nasty this guy's striking was and how improved it was when he fought, what's his name? When he fought Elvis Brenner with all the knees to the midsection. And we saw another flying knee. Nasty KO. This was an interesting one because he hurt Klose. He hurt him bad on the feet with a punch. And then Klose is like, oh, shit, I got to go away to the fence. And you could see Joel Alvarez. When I'm watching this live, I'm like, Joel Alvarez, throw a knee. I'm like, throw a knee, bro. He's right there. And he waits. He, delays it. You know what I mean? He delays it, and Klose still dips his head, and Joel Alvarez cracks him with the knee. And I'm thinking, man, he took that. That was a perfect opportunity to throw that knee, but he took it. All right, maybe he's going to wrap him up in a submission. He's throwing a couple of shots, and then Klose is out cold. And you see the replay, and it's actually the knee that knocked him out cold. The follow-up shots weren't even necessary. So that was just nasty finish. This guy's only been beaten by Arman Sarukian, which just goes to show how good he is, and also goes to show how good Arman is. And he's improved. I think I want to see this guy fight Dan Hooker. I want to see him fight Justin Gaethje. All right, because here's the thing. I've given a lot of hype to prospects like Benoit Saint Denis, but Benoit Saint Denis, listen, he was like the Marauder archetype, like wild, and it was fun to root for a guy like that because it was like nobody's stopping this guy. You know, he's gonna bulldoze everybody, but he's got shitty boxing defense, and his technique is kind of crap. And he's only really good at when he's only really good when it comes to just marauding, right? But Joel Alvarez is a prospect where you actually have to think, like, what is this guy's weakness? Because he has 18 finishes by submission. Yes, he's been held down by Arman Tsarukyan, who has some of the best ability to control people, some of the best ground and pound in MMA history. Arman Tsarukyan is one of the best ground strikers ever. And Joel Alvarez has improved since then. Insanely good grappling, great submission game, and his striking is actually looking super dangerous, right? He is looking very dangerous. Also, his frame, it's good for the division as well. His timing is also good. So, you know, Joel Alvarez is a guy where I think I think he has the skills to make it to the top 5. I think he has the skills to make it to the top 5, and I'm a lot more confident in Joel Alvarez's ability to make it to the top 5 than Benoit Saint Denis. I know it's easy to say that looking back, you know, after seeing Benoit get beat by Poirier and seeing him get beat by Renato Moicano, but there's just a big difference. Like Joel Alvarez, his technique and skill is top notch, whereas it's not just physicality and aura. You know what I mean? So yeah, Joel Alvarez should have been in there with a better fighter, a bigger name, but he did exactly what he was supposed to do to a guy like Drakkar Klose, finished him in the first round, had a masterclass performance. Let's give him a Dan Hooker. Let's give him a Justin Gaethje. I know Gaethje's probably not going to fight him because he only wants to fight the top guys, the big names, so whatever, but, you know, give him a Fiziev. Give him a big name. Let's not fuck around and do the... Who's another name? I don't know. Let's not do like a Mateusz Raumbetsky type of fight, all right? Fuck off with those kind of matchups for now. Let's give Joel Alvarez a big name. He's 2 fights away from a belt. That's what I want to see. All right, 2 fights away. Damn, Sean Woodson. This was the one that proved that Sean Woodson was the real deal. Sean Woodson's been on his, you know, Buckley streak. You know, Sean Woodson's on like a 6-fight win streak now. Fernando Padilla just got completely dismantled, completely destroyed. I thought that maybe because Fernando Padilla had a similar height, similar reach, was going to be able to have some success. But you know what? Woodson proved that it's not just his height and it's not just his reach. He's actually just very good. And, you know, his boxing looked good. He looked dangerous. Woodson's not always a guy that looks dangerous. Woodson looked dangerous in this fight. Like, he was popping Fernando Padilla's head back, spinning it around, and brutally knocked him out. Another nasty KO. So many finishes on this card. This is why this card was so great. This proved that Sean Woodson's actually legit and is probably good enough to be ranked. All right, and he called for a ranking. Should have called someone out. Maybe him versus Lerone Murphy could be interesting. That could be a really good fight. Him versus Lerone Murphy. Yair Rodriguez, you know what? Nah, because Woodson's just going to take him down, man. Fuck! If only Yair had better takedown defense. Woodson's just going to take him down. All right, but you know what? Yair would be actually pretty interesting. That'd be an interesting fight. But I'm watching Woodson box, and I'm actually thinking to myself, like, I don't know how many people beat this guy. He's very difficult to land on. His boxing is actually dangerous now. He has good takedown defense. I always used to say, I don't understand how he's got good takedown defense. You put me in there with Woodson, I'm taking him down. I always said, if there's no submissions, if there's no punches or kicks allowed, if it's just like, I'm given the opportunity to try to take this guy down, I'm going to do it. Right? I don't understand how he's so hard to take down. He's like, you know, he looks like one of these guys who just push over. Now I understand fully well if I take this guy down, he's submitting me with an instant. All right? I understand that. I get it in a real fight. But, you know, all jokes aside, Woodson's got really good takedown defense. I think he's underrated. I could see people picking anyone to beat Sean Woodson. And I know, fair enough, it's Fernando Padilla. I get it. But, you know, he did what he was supposed to do to Fernando Padilla. Lit him up. Couldn't have been more dominant. So I want to see Woodson fight someone in the top 15. Arnold Allen, even. Give him an Arnold Allen, right? Give him a Giga Chikadze. But it just goes to show featherweight stacked. On to the next one, Miles Johns versus Felipe Lima. The Brazilian-Swedish Dustin Poirier is back. Very good. Lighter man speed was on display in this one. Miles Johns also kind of is... Miles Johns is like the shortest featherweight. He looks like a bantamweight in there. But Felipe Lima just too fast for him. I know Miles Johns has a wrestling background, but Felipe Lima out-grappling him at moments. And emoting on Miles Johns, and really just got Miles Johns into that like angry man mode, right? That Miles Johns was in that like slugging mode, that Emmett mode last night, but just couldn't make anything happen. But you know what? I like this because usually Miles Johns is a bit of a plotty guy, and he has these big hooks, but he's not throwing them with a lot of output, and his fights can be a little bit slow. Felipe Lima brought the best out of Miles Johns. He made Miles Johns want to actually throw and fight. So, yeah, Lima looked good, but as the fight went on, you could tell that he's still very green, like his ability to find the finish or, you know, for example, when Miles Johns started to do better and started to make some adjustments, we didn't see Felipe Lima adjust to that. Like, I think that his best round was the first, and even though he didn't gas out and he had good moments in the grappling, his striking success kind of went down a little bit. But his speed is there. His potential is there. His power, that's the thing. You know, he doesn't have that much pop. But speed, well-roundedness, Felipe Lima is looking like an amazing prospect at featherweight. I think Felipe Lima is out here giving featherweight McGregor issues. Like, I was thinking about this yesterday when I was watching all these featherweight fights. Because I actually watched McGregor versus Seaver. I watched McGregor versus Dennis Seaver the other day. And McGregor, listen, he was amazing. He's very hittable, though. And it's not like he was just knocking out Dennis Seaver with one punch. Like, you know, McGregor had a 5-minute war with Dennis Seaver. The featherweights today, just the fighters today are so much better. That's all I'm going to say. Like, if you put Felipe Lima in the UFC in the early 2010s, he's making it to a fucking championship belt. All right? That's all I'm saying. Right? If you put Sean Woodson in the UFC in the 2000s, he's a 10-time defending champ. Okay? Joel Alvarez in the early 2010s is defending his belt 50 times. And the same can be said, I don't know about Buckley to GSP, but that'd be a good fight, though. Felipe Lima is, you know what we're seeing, guys? We're seeing the new evolution of MMA. These well-rounded fighters that are good everywhere, that are fast. Right? It's one thing being well-rounded, not being fast. It's another thing being fast and actually being a good athlete and being well-rounded. This card is kind of showing me that we're in the new era. This is the new era. But let's get on to the next one. Miranda Maverick beats Jamie Lynn Horth. Was this a decision? Yeah, it was a decision, huh? Let's get on to the next one. Davy Grant. Dude, I'm so happy Davy Grant won this fight. Ramon Tavares struggled against Sidi Sai, I think his name is, right? That was another interesting fight. That was on the Strickland and Duplessis card where Ramon Tavares got outputted, but he landed the big power shots. And this is the thing. If you're going to have that style where, like, you're willing to get pieced up, you're willing to take a lot of punishment, you're willing to let the other guy throw a lot, but you're just waiting for one big moment, that's not your best bet if you're fighting Davy Grant, who's got like a fire hydrant head. Davy Grant has always had like a very tough noggin. You know what I mean? We saw it in the Adrian Yanez fight. And he said it in his post-fight speech. It's good to be on the right side of a decision. Because I remember this guy fought Yanez before Yanez had lost to Font. Before he had lost to Martinez. And I thought he won. Like, he actually should have beat Yanez with his output. And he should have beat Daniel Marcos. Davy Grant is one of the most underrated fighters ever. Straight up ever. He is. This guy should have beat Yanez. He should have beat Marcos. He was robbed in both of those fights. And now he's getting a win over Ramon Tavares. I'm acting like Ramon Tavares is like, you know, Sean O'Malley level at this point. Like, you know, Ramon Tavares has dropped a couple of people a couple times. Right? But still, Davy Grant had an amazing performance, bro. Insane performance. And not only was he like, you know, kicking the shit out of Ramon Tavares, but he was also throwing like 3-piece combos, like Davy Grant would have his hands by his hips, right? Because he can rely on having a fire hydrant level of chin. And he's just out here swinging hooks to the body and swinging up top. Dude, I love Davy Grant's style. Such a fun style to watch. Such a crafty vet look that this guy has. He just looks like, look at Davy Grant. It's just the crafty vet, you know, like the definition of one. We may have to say this is the craftiest performance of the year, guys. I'm going to have to look into that. But great performance. Davy Grant getting it done and once again showing that he's underrated. Not many people can beat Davy Grant, and if you beat him, you have to fucking rob him, okay? But, yeah. I don't know. When's the last time someone's actually put this guy away? Has that ever even happened? So, great performance. Output was on point. This kind of really set the tone for the fight night. I mean, this set the tone. To be fair, Piera Rodriguez and Josephine Knutson was a decent fight. That was actually a decent fight. But when this happened, we were like, all right, now we're off to the races. Like, the real fights have started. And this set the tone. So shout out to Davy Grant. Ramon Taveras just didn't let his hands go enough. I know it was tough. I know that Davy Grant was piecing him up. I know it was not easy, right? But still, didn't really let his hands go that much. And that was the problem in this fight. Davy Grant just picked him apart. Tons of output. Very fun style. All right, so I really enjoyed this card, and I'm happy to see him win. What a card. What an amazing card. Amazing fight, great fight. Damn near every single fight was good. Every single fight was pretty much awesome, except for Vitor Petrino versus Jacoby was a little bit slow, but it was saved by Jacoby getting the KO. That's the thing about Vitor Petrino. He has this, like, this look like he's going to go out there and slug for the fences and like be this insanely entertaining fighter, but he actually has like a pretty low output style where he'll explode every once in a while and actually try to KO you, but most of the time he's just throwing a jab and like feinting at range. He kind of has like a WMMA type of feinting style. You know how like WMMA fighters, they'll just feint, and then they'll just throw a jab. They'll feint like a big overhand and a flying knee and a takedown, and they'll just throw a jab. That's kind of Vitor Petrino. So I think he should grapple more because I don't think anyone can stop him from taking them down unless they have the best takedown defense. And also not a lot of wrestlers at light heavyweight. Manel Kape showed out Cub Swanson, achieving legendary Unk status, crafty vet status. Colby Covington, Joaquin Buckley. Buckley gets it done. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Until next time.